Good afternoon, students. Today we're looking at a new topic. It's called the value scale. Alright, now I have an image here, right? When you see this image, what comes to mind? What makes this image looks 3D? Because here we have a flat screen, right? But we're getting the illusion of a three-dimensional object on the screen. So why do you think we're getting this effect? So the question was, on this flat screen, we have a three-dimensional object being displayed, right? Why do you think it's possible for us to see a three-dimensional object on a flat surface? Let me raise your hands to answer the question. Anybody answering the question? Yes, Alia.
Miss, is the shading?
Yes, correct. Now, the shading is what brought out the form, right? It's called form because it's not flat, right? Does anybody know what form is? Can you raise your hands, please? Yes, Nathan.
Miss, a form is like shapes and stuff.
Yes, right? So form, in other words, means that the object is not flat, it has width, height, and length, right? So, perfect, alright? So, here on our object, we have some details. Now, we'll get back to these details a little later, right? So, let's look at what a value scale is. So here, the value scale. Let's read what the value scale is. Together, the value scale. The value scale
is a visual representation of tonal values, typically ranging from pure white to pure black, with a series of evenly spaced shades of gray in between, used to help artists understand and control the lightness and darkness of their artwork.
Alright, so the definition of what a value scale is speaks for itself, right? Because we're talking about pure white to pure black, right? On the value scale. Alright? So this value scale here is showing us or guiding us the different values we are to use when shading our object or composition. So on this value scale, can you tell me what or which one of these shapes is the lightest? Nathan, can you please tell me on the value scale, where is the lightest light?
Miss, the first one to you side.
Oh, yes. Here, as you can see, is the lightest light, meaning the lightest on the object, right? So here we have our lightest light, and then we have some middle tones, and then we have our darkest dark, right? Now, we will look into more of this, or we'll get to see how this value scale is transformed into or onto an object. Let's look back at our objects. So, remember, on our value scale, we had labeling of the different values, right? Can you identify on this object where is our lightest light? We just identified it on the value scale. Can you tell me now here, where is our lightest light? Raise your hands, please. Yes, Jessica?
Miss, the one that label highlight.
Yes, right? So the lightest light or the highlight, right, which is here, is our lightest value, right? Who can tell me where is our darkest dark? Let me see. Yes, Andy. Where's our darkest dark here on the object?
Miss, the occlusion shadow.
Yes, right? So you see all of our values have different or varying names, right? So here on our object, which is part of the shadow, right, is called an occlusion shadow. It's the darkest dark on the object here, right? And we have our cast shadow, and so on and so forth, right? Can we call these the name of these values together? So here it's called what?
Center light,
Center light,
highlight,
highlight,
half tones,
tones,
core shadow,
core shadow,
reflected light,
reflected light,
cast shadow, occlusion shadow.
Okay. Yes, Raul. You have a question?
Yes, miss. So which one would be the middle tone?
Which one will be in middle tone? So you see here we have our core shadow.
Yes.
Good. This is the middle tone, right? This is called this is also called the middle tone.
Okay, miss. Thank you.
Yeah. So students, to bring the whole value scale to reality. Now remember we have our object here, right? This is a drawing that's already done. We have some values that are identified on this object. Now we have an object here in reality, the orange, right? And we have our light source, okay? Now I want you likewise to tell me if you can see the various values that are on this object onto this object, the orange, right? Can anybody tell me where the highlight of this orange is? Raise your hands, please. Yes, Sarah?
Miss, the part that's shining like.
Yes, right? That's here?
Yes, miss.
Perfect. Right? Indeed. Now, why, can you tell me, can anybody tell me why the highlight, or why do we have a highlight on our object? Yes, Ali?
Miss, is the reflection of the light, because it's the closest part to the light.
Indeed. Let's give her a round of applause. That is correct, right? Because the highlight is caused by the closeness, or that's the closest part to our light. Alright? And remember, our light source is this only light source here. Right? Can anybody identify for me where the shadow is on the object?
Miss, which shadow? The cast or the core shadow?
Anyone you can this.
Miss, the cast shadow. I seen the cast shadow right like behind the object.
Right. And you see now our cast shadow. Why is our cast shadow being caused, or what is causing our cast shadow? Our cast shadow is being caused because our object is blocking the light, right? Hence our shadow, our cast shadow is formed. Alright? So can we see our darkest dark, the occlusion shadow? Are you seeing that on the object?
Yes, miss.
Okay. Are we seeing the core shadow? Can we identify the core shadow? No, you can't see it. Now, what is important for us to note is that when you're drawing from observation, alright, you need to have, it's important to have one source of light, because as is right now, the light coming from different angles or many angles, it's harder for us to identify like our object is showing here, right? So it might be a bit harder, but we're gonna still get a concept. Alright? And remember, apart from our highlight and our shadow, right, and our reflected light, there are something called middle tones, right, or half tones, and those are, let's call them as the middle light,
Dark light, light middle,
middle,
dark middle, light dark, middle dark, and dark dark.
Right? So without these middle tones, right, our object won't get the effect of being three-dimensional. Alright? Here we have an art piece, right, being done. So I brought this so you can see how the importance of the value, right, or the value scale, how the importance of it is being reflected on this composition here. Alright? Now here we have a stellite composition of some object, right? And as you can see now, you wouldn't have been able to appreciate, right, this composition if it weren't for the value scale. Alright, so now can you tell me again, based off of our value scale and our objects, right? Can you tell me if you can see the values under the composition? Where is our darkest dark? Can you identify our darkest dark? So here in this composition we have multiple areas of darkness, right? And this one is a bit more complicated because of the lighting and everything to consider, right? So now we can identify our some dark areas we have around here, right? And you see the fabric and the background adds to the complication, right? Because we have a few objects, right? And we also have the background cloth or fabric, which is also adding to the complication, right? But we have here, can you identify here as being one of the darkest dark? This area down here.
Yes, miss.
Right? And then we also have our middle tones as well. Can you identify your middle tone or a middle tone in this object here? Or half tones?
Miss, on the light.
On the light? Which part? Okay, so let me help you, right? So let's take one object at a time. So on this piece here, right? Can you see any half tones here? Can you see your half tones?
Yes, miss.
Yes. All right. Also on our apple, right? It's an apple. On this object here, you also have some half tones, right? So this composition should help you to appreciate the value scale better. Okay? So now I have an activity for you guys. Now we will have the orange, alright? And I want you to quickly draw from observation the orange. I want to see about 5 values being reflected on your object. So quickly for me, illustrate or draw this orange. Okay, so here we have our first student's work. Okay, so student, point to note, you are not to shade. I mean, mixed media is a thing, but I see you try shading with a pen and try shading with a pencil as well. But it's not a good blend, okay? But I like the fact that you got in 4 values here, so good job. I also want to see you, well, you needed to do some more blending with your occlusion shadow into your class shadow, okay? You're going to need a gradation from dark to light. All right. You need a little more work on your shading as well, shading from your light to your dark, right after your highlight. All right. Okay, so here you have our second student. All right, I see this student managed to get in their 5 values. Okay, are values correct? Yes, the values are correct. Okay, so you only need to work on the blending of your values, right? In terms of the gradation, it's a bit rough, right? Your core shadow there is a bit harsh, but it's detected. It's good that you could detect that, right? Also your closing shadow needed to be a bit more soft, like blend out a bit into your cast shadow. Alright, but good job, thank you. Here we have our third student. Okay, I like what I'm seeing here. I see a bit more gradation and control in your pencil movement. Alright, so good job. I see you also did a good job in your occlusion shadow, and it's blending into your path shadow. Alright, so good job. Keep it up. Okay, students, so from today's lesson, let's do a bit of recap. Now, can you tell me in your own words, what do you understand is the value scale? Yes, Mr. Kevin.
Yes, miss. When you're shading something, right? You got dark and you got light. And they got a lot of different shades between dark and light. So the value scale is the shades them that come between dark and light.
Yes, right? That's very good, right? Yes, we have our lightest light, and we have our darkest dark, and then we have our middle tones. Let me get a second student. Sandra, tell me in your own words what the value scale is. What do you understand?
Miss, the value scale is the guide where we use to shade our drawing to make it look more realistic.
Indeed, right? Correct? Our value scale helps to bring life to our drawing, to our composition, to our object. Alright, that's a good one. Let me have one more student tell me what the value scale is. Anyone? Alright, yes, Alia.
Miss, the value scale is basically a scale that has different values on it, which would be light being the first one, dark being the last, and it has middle values, which includes dark light and other values.
Yes. Alright, students, so that is correct. Thank you, Alia. Now, our value scale is very important, alright? It really helps to give life to our composition. It really helps to add depth, right? It gives form, right? Understanding this really brings to life our drawing composition, alright? So now for homework, I want you to draw two objects. Now we had one object in class. Now we're gonna level that up a bit. You're gonna select any two objects in your household. You can select fruits or a fruit and another simple object, right? Place your lights. You can have an artificial light or you can have it in the sunlight outside, alright? But the artificial light gives more direct contact, right, with your objects. So I want you to get any two objects, place it under your lights, right, and practice as much with the knowledge you have gained today. Alright? Okay, good afternoon class, and do enjoy the rest of your day.